afternoon to our distinguished audience. Welcome to the 37th episode of the JakPost Up Close, the Jakarta Post webinar. My name is Stella, Economic Team Coordinator at Tenggara Strategics, and I will be your host for this event. We would like to first extend our utmost welcome to His Excellency Mr. Suharso Monoarfa, the Minister of National Development Planning, Republic of Indonesia. Thank you, Mr. Minister, for your support and participation in this event. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia has either lost or wasted 115 to 184 kilograms of food per capita every year from 2000 to 2019, according to the Food Loss and Waste in Indonesia report published by the National Development Planning Agency, or Bappenas. On a per capita basis, Indonesia is the second highest contributor to food loss and waste practices in the world after Saudi Arabia. Now, in this 37th episode of the JakPost Up Close, and in the spirit to celebrate Food World Day 2021, we are convening this wonderful webinar under the theme, The Future of Our Food is in Our Hands, where we will discuss sustainable food consumption by reducing food loss and waste, its impact to the environment, and ways for us as consumers to actively seek ways to contribute to the SDG Goal 2, which is the Zero Hunger Goal, by consuming food sustainably and choosing sustainable brands in our daily lives. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here with us today, we have three excellent speakers for the panel discussion. The first one is Mr. Drajat Martianto, the expert in food and nutrition policy, and Ms. Eva Bachtiar, founder and CEO of Garda Pangan, as well as Mrs. Vera Galuh Sugijanto, the VP General Secretary of Danone-Indonesia. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to begin our event, let us first invite His Excellency Mr. Suharso Monoarfa, the Minister of National Development Planning, Republic of Indonesia, to give a keynote speech. To Mr. Minister, the time is yours.
Honorable speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan, salam sehat selalu. I would like to express my gratitude for the opportunity to join and meet you virtually at this wonderful event. I would like to thank the organizer, speakers, and all participants for making this event happen in the spirit of Celebrate Food World Day 2021. The future of our food is in our hands. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as highlighted during the UN Food Systems Summit 2021 last month, it is clear that to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, our global food security needs to be transformed into a more nutritious, inclusive, equitable, sustainable, and resilient one. This transformation becomes more important today as we face a convergence of crises. Based on Indonesia's latest SDGs Voluntary National Report in 2021, COVID-19 influences our past positive trends on food security, with one of many issues we face is food loss and waste management. During 2019 to 2020, our poverty and prevalence of undernourishment turned into an increasing trend. While agricultural labor increased, agricultural wage and value added turned to decreasing. Triple burden malnutrition is still our big challenge in food security development, especially on the issue of under 5 stunting and waste. Furthermore, according to data from the Ministry of Forestry and Environment, the biggest percentage of Indonesia waste generation comes from food waste with 40.10%. Those above-mentioned issues must be taken as our main concern to achieve food security through an effective and efficient food system. We need to take a big leap and build the foundation to plan and develop strategies to narrow the gap. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is committed to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, one of which is to tackle loss of food and waste generation indicated in target 12.3. The target calls for cutting in half per capita global food waste at the retail and consumer level and reducing food losses along production and supply chains, including post-harvest losses by 2030. This target is implemented to end hunger through a reliable and sustainable national food system, sustainable consumption and production, and the objective to reduce greenhouse gas emission. Furthermore, Indonesia's commitment to SDGs is demonstrated by mainstreaming the SDGs goals, targets, and indicators in the National Medium-Term Development Plan, so-called LPCMN 2020-2024. In the National Medium-Term Development Plan, the improvement of the national food system is emphasized in strengthening economic resilience for quality and fair growth, also increasing availability, accessibility, and quality of food. This program consists of 5 priority activities, namely increasing quality, safety, fortification, and biofortification of food consumption. Second, increasing availability, price stability, and sustainability of food supply, including aquacultural food. The third, increasing productivity and sustainability of agricultural human resources, including market access. Number 4, increasing productivity and sustainability of agricultural natural resources, including agriculture digitization. And the last one, improving national food system and food governance. Moreover, the food loss and waste agenda is also incorporated national priority, building environment, improving resilience on disaster and climate change through low carbon development. Several national priority activities in low carbon development, such as sustainable agriculture and waste management, are a sense of effort to implement a circular economy and sustainable food loss and waste management in Indonesia. All these strategies to achieve sustainable food loss and waste management, and we are ready to go forward beyond the business as usual approach. As the initial step in the transformation of food loss and waste management in Indonesia, the government, supported by the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, United Kingdom, conducted a study of food loss and waste in Indonesia, which released in June 2021. This study has identified baseline data on food loss and waste for the last 20 years on its environment, economy, and social impact, and provided recommendation for Indonesia. By presenting several evidence-based results, we hope that this study can serve as a reference and guide for stakeholders and policymakers and provide an overview of the government effort in managing food loss and waste in the context of implementing a circular economy and low carbon development. Based on the study's main findings, food loss and waste in Indonesia in 2000 to 2019 have reached from 115 to 184 kilogram per capita per year. The total food loss and waste association emission in 2000 to 2019 20 years reach 1.7 megatons of CO2 equivalent. The economic loss due to food loss and waste is approximately 213 to 551 trillions per year, or equals 4 to 5% of Indonesia GDP. The number of people that can be fed from the loss of nutrition of energy from food loss and waste generation in 20 years is around 60 to 125 million people per year. As a comprehensive step in the context of implementing a circular economy and low carbon development in Indonesia, we encourage several key strategies that we can start doing. First, to conduct capacity building for all stakeholders involved in the food supply chain, including consumer behavior change. Second, to develop farmer cooperation, providing infrastructure and facilities that support the efficiency of the food production process. Third, to optimize funding for food loss and waste management, enhance food loss and waste regulation at the national and regional levels, including interagency coordination. Fourth, to promote the development of food distribution platform and food loss and waste management that support a circular economy. Last but not least, to strengthen national and regional database on FLW through studies and assessment. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, the study that we have prepared is only the first step of a long journey in implementing food loss and waste management strategies in Indonesia. We still have a lot of homework to do together, and certainly the government cannot work alone. Cooperative movement from multi-stakeholders, including the public, business actors, NGOs, philanthropy, media, academics, needs to happen. With strong cooperation and collaboration, we can tackle all challenges in food loss and waste management to promote an effective and efficient food system. We really hope this webinar can be a platform to share ideas and recommendations to strengthen our policy. We also hope that the cooperation that has been established can continue well in the next stage to support the implementation of circular economy and low carbon development through food loss and waste management in Indonesia. I do thank you. Wassalamualaikum.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Mr. Suharso Monoarfa, for the insightful and motivating speech. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are entering the panel discussion session. I will begin the session with introducing our three excellent speakers. Our first speaker is Mr. Drajat Martianto, the expert in food and nutrition policy. Mr. Drajat is the Deputy Chancellor for Education and Student Affairs at Institut Pertanian Bogor, or IPB. He is also the head of Policy Analysis and Advocacy Department at the Indonesian Association of Nutritionists and Food Experts, or PGZ. He received his PhD in Human Nutrition and Food from University of the Philippines in Los Banos, Philippines. Our second speaker, Ms. Eva Bachtiar, is the co-founder of and CEO of Garda Pangan. In addition to being the co-founder and CEO of Garda Pangan, Ms. Eva is also the founder and CEO of Starsight Edukasi and the co-founder and CEO of Alang Alang Zero Waste Store. She received her bachelor's degree in industrial engineering from Bandung Institute of Technology, or ITB. And our third speaker is Mrs. Vera Galuh Sugijanto, the VP General Secretary of Danone-Indonesia. Previously, she was the Legal and External Affairs Director for GlaxoSmithKline Indonesia, a UK-based pharmaceutical company, and she received her Bachelor of Law degree from our session. I would like to first invite our three exceptional speakers for a photo session. So if Mr. Drajat, Ms. Eva, and Mrs. Vera could turn the camera on. we're going to start the photo session right away. So IT team, please let me know if you're ready. All right, perfect. Now, Bapak, Ibu, we're going to start the photo session. I'm going to start the countdown. We're going to take the photo in 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we begin our panel discussion, I'm going to announce a brief housekeeping memo. The format of this event is a panel discussion. So we're going to have presentation and then later open the floor for questions in the last 20 minutes. And to ask your questions, please post your question in the Q&A box along with the name of the speaker whom you would like to address your question, if any, and we will address the questions to our speakers. So ladies and gentlemen, go to the Q&A box on your Zoom screen and then post your question there along with the name of the speakers if you have a certain speaker in mind to answer your questions. And this is a bilingual event, so feel free to post your question either in English or Indonesian, and the organizing committee will assist you in the translation process if needed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's start our panel discussion on the future of our food is in our hands. For our first speaker, Mr. Drajat, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Mbak Stella. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, all of the audience and honorable speakers. Thank you very much to Tenggara Strategics and the JakPost for inviting me to present what are the role of reducing food loss and ways to improve Indonesian food security. Please, can you help me to how could food loss and waste reduction contribute to achieve the food security in Indonesia? Okay, next. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the improvement of Indonesian food security, particularly in increasing food production and availability of staples food and other strategic food production in general is growing. Although some commodity is still greatly depend on importation, but the situation is actually getting better. However, we have to consider that the objective of providing adequate food to the people is actually to achieve better nutritional status of the people, a better quality of life, and better health status. Unfortunately, we still have some problem of malnutrition, under and over nutrition. Stunting, for example, or in general terms in Bahasa, sometimes people call as pendek or sometimes also called as kerdil, although this is not correct terminology, but maybe is understood better, yeah. So stunting is remain a very prevalent. We are among the countries that have the highest prevalence of stunting. On the contrary, overweight steadily increase, particularly among the adult women, and anemia, particularly iron deficiency anemia among the pregnant women, also very high. All of these malnutrition problems actually are related to inadequate or sometimes also excessive intake in the case of overnutrition. Next. In this slide, you can see that general situation of Indonesian food security. At present, the position of Indonesia in global food security is at the 65th place from 113 countries. It was decreased from 62 in 2020. I mean, among the biggest problem is in the quantity and safety. Our quantity and safety, quality and safety is still considered as low because of lack animal food and also lack of fruits and vegetables. Availability and affordability are getting better in line with the better economic situation in the last few years. And then if we look at more detail by districts, next. we found that there is a disparity in food security status among regions in Indonesia. In general, in eastern part of Indonesia, the problem of food vulnerability and insecurity are higher. As you can see at the figures, that the red color, the dark red is showing that the problem is more serious. Next. Deeper analysis showing that individually, 1 out of 12 people in Indonesia are undernourished. The energy intake was lower than the standard of dietary allowance. That is true that the prevalence of undernourishment in the last 10 years is getting better, although it is possible to worsen because of the COVID-19. But still, we have a big problem because almost 10% of the prevalence of undernourishment in Indonesia. Next. Of course, increasing food production or availability is very much important for Indonesia. Under the situation that population is always growing, and on the other hand, the purchasing power of the people in general are increased. So the need for adequate food is getting higher, of course. However, at present, with the high land conversion, limited water availability, and so many impacts of climate change, will challenge the effort to continuously increase the food supply. Efficiency in production, processing, distribution, and consumption is therefore very much important to increase food availability. So next, I will show the study on the food loss and waste that is already mentioned by the Minister of Bappenas. Some of information is already presented by Pak Menteri, but I will going deeper. So the study conducted by Bappenas and also Waste for Change, where I was involved as one among the study team. And what we were doing was try to estimate the magnitude of food loss and waste, to identify the causes, and also to identify the strategy to cope with the problem. So next. In some publication, Indonesia was always, as also described earlier by the moderator, Indonesia was always said to be the second country after Saudi Arabia who has the higher food waste, according to the Economic Intelligence Unit research. It was said that food waste in Indonesia is about 300 kilograms per capita per year. However, we couldn't find the methodology for their assessment. And then that's why we conduct our own study. So based on our Bappenas and Waste for Change study on food loss and waste, this is not only food waste, but this is on food loss and waste. As mentioned by Pak Menteri, was only 115 to 184 kilogram per capita per year. However, although this finding is much lower than the Economic Intelligence Unit study, but still this amount is very high. The monetary value is approximately 200 to 500 trillion rupiah. That's very big amount of money, of course. We can use this money to other purposes for the development. And of course, it's depend on the volume and the price of the food at the time. So total Indonesian food loss and waste equal to calorie, actually even able to support 62 to 125 million people to be food secure. Next. If we look at the composition of the food loss and waste as presented in this figure. Food consumption and production contribute more of food loss and waste than processing. And we have to consider that the role of food waste is getting higher than the food loss. We have to consider very much of this. The studies show that increase of GDP per capita in general associated with volume of food waste and improvement of post-harvest technology in the last years, followed by better good manufacturing, good handling process, and other improvement in technology, and also logistic and distribution lead to the lesser food loss. So in the next years, the problem is more in the restaurant, hotel, and in our home. Okay, next. In terms of the commodity, the highest food loss and waste came from fruit and vegetables. Approximately half of fruit and vegetables lost during and become waste during the production and up to consumption, and it become waste. On the contrary, according to basic health research, or we know as risk-assessed in 2018, 95% of Indonesian consume fruit and vegetables less than recommendation. So we have a big problem in quality and safety of food consumption. But on the other hand, there are important food, very much important food to improve our quality, namely fruits and vegetables just become food waste. So next, in this table, you can see that if we can prevent or reduce the food loss and waste, actually we can help so many people to achieve their food security status, their adequacy of food and also nutrient that we can they can consume if we can increase the efficiency, increase the reduce the loss and waste during from the field to the table. So with this abundant food loss and waste, as you can see in this table, we can feed so many people. And as I mentioned before, that we still have a big problem in undernutrition. Actually, we can help so many people to achieve their food security if we can prevent the food loss and waste. So we have to really find what are the causes and what are the strategy to improve our situation, to reduce the food loss and waste, and use as maximum as possible to be used up. If we can prevent, if we cannot prevent the food loss and waste, then at least we can maximize our utilization of the food loss and waste. So next slide.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay. In this in our study, we identify that the causes and the drivers of food loss and waste, as you can see at the table. There are so many things that we cause the food loss and waste, as you can see in the table. Particularly for the food loss, there are lack of implementation of good handling practices, and also insufficiency of quality of storage space and other, as you can see in this table, in this chart. Next, so what we have to do? At least we identify 5 strategies, since in the future, food waste will become the major of food loss and waste in Indonesia. So behavioral change is very much important. We have to need a massive behavioral change through education and also uses of social media and other strategy that we can develop. So we need to join together to make a campaign to make people aware that we have a big problem, not only on the food loss and waste, but also on the impact of our our globe. And next, the final slide is as a global strategy for Indonesia. I think we have really to reshape our strategy to be able to achieve better food security. So I propose there are 7 strategy, and if we look at the strategy number 4 and 5 and also 7, 4, 5, and 7, they are related to the strategy to reduce both food loss and waste. So we do hope that in our next RPJMN, the medium-term strategy of the development in Indonesia, all of these things can be incorporated, can be adopted to resolve the Indonesian strategy to make a better, a stronger, and resilient food security in Indonesia. Thank you very much for listening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So the others we can discuss after this. Thank you, Mbak Sally.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thank you very much, sir, for the insightful presentation. So, ladies and gentlemen, as Mr. Drajat has explained to us before, the food condition in our country is getting better, but undernourishment remains prevalent. The availability and affordability of food is getting better, but disparity in food security remains across the islands in Indonesia. 1 in 12 people in Indonesia is still malnourished. And so among the things that we need to do is that as a consumer, we should change our behavior by utilizing food better, and also looking at the trend where food waste is becoming more prominent as compared to food loss. That makes the role of the restaurant, hotels, and other businesses have a bigger role in solving the food loss and waste problem. And also, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Drajat also reminded us to consume more fruit and vegetable, because apparently most of us still consume less fruit and vegetable than the level recommended. So thank you very much, Mr. Drajat, for a very practical solution for us all as well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite the second speaker for our panel discussion, Ms. Eva Bachtiar. To Ms. Eva Bachtiar, the time is yours.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mbak Stella. Thank you so much, Jakarta Post and Tenggara Strategics for having me. Greetings for other respected speakers, Pak Drajat, Bu Vera. Thank you, Pak Drajat. I think that was a very comprehensive presentation capturing the essence of food loss and waste problem in Indonesia. And to me, that was a fundamental step for us to be aware of the issue and be able to take a real action. So today I'm going to share about what we all can do to practice a more sustainable consumption with less food loss and food waste produced. And later on, we can have discussion further in a Q&A session. Okay. All right, I'm Eva Bachtiar, founder and CEO of Garda Pangan, and here's our tagline, why beneath if we can feed people in need. So as Pak Drajat mentioned, what hits me the most is that food waste is also an irony, as on the other side, 19.4 million of people in Indonesia still struggle for food every day. They still go to bed hungry, and millions of Indonesian people suffer from malnutrition and stunting, right? So what came to my mind was, why don't we bridge the gap between those who have food surplus and those who need them the most? And why be need if we can actually feed people in needs? And that's when we came up with Garda Pangan, which is a social enterprise with two main goals, which is a food waste and loss eradications, but also at the same time, hunger relief. And here is some of our activities, or what we call food rescue. That literally means rescuing surplus food so that they don't end up as waste. So what we do is basically tackling the food waste and loss issue from its biggest source. And one of them is from hospitality industries and food businesses, because we found out that food waste is considered as a necessary evil in the sector, right? And wasting food is considered as the easiest, it's also the cheapest and fastest option to get rid of their food surplus. So the way we work is we are having a partnership with these hospitality industries, food businesses. We pick up the unsold food that is still in a perfectly edible conditions from the restaurants, hotels, cafes, bakeries that would otherwise go to waste. And we distribute them instead to those who are food insecure. So we pick up their food on the arranged schedule, we run the quality check, we sort and pack them if necessary, and we send them right away to the people in needs. And not only picking up food from businesses, we also rescue food from big events like weddings, you know, conference, festivals, you name it, that used to involve huge amount of surplus food. So in this case, we also have a partnership with wedding organizers and caterings. So basically people can request us to pick up the surplus food from their events. And believe it or not, we used to rescue up to 500 portions of food from one single wedding in Surabaya. Another source of food loss is also from the farmer's field. So what we do is we call it gleaning, which is gathering leftover fruits, vegetables, or other produce to tackle the food loss from the farmer's field. We call it gleaning, but it is basically the same as other food rescue, only we rescue it directly from the farmer's field. And this usually happens on peak harvest season, where commodity prices plunge significantly, that even the selling price would not cover the harvesting costs. So farmers tend to choose to leave the produce rotting on the field without harvesting them. So in this picture, for instance, is when we were gleaning the cabbage in Jember, the price plunged from usually 3,000 per kilograms to only 150 per kilogram. So farmers there chose to not harvest the cabbage. So that's what we pick up as well. And then in addition to rescuing food and produce, we realized that it is also very important to spread the awareness about food waste issue and sustainable consumption to as much as individuals. So we actively roll out a creative campaign either on the street or through social media by providing useful and practical tips in reducing food waste that everyone can do in their household. We also provide a sustainable and responsible food waste management service. So this is mostly for big scale companies that used to hire a vendor to destroy a huge amount of near expired foods that is being returned. So what we do is we basically offering them a new approach that instead of you destroying food, we can actually make the most out of the food and distributing them safely to people in needs in timely manner. We also provide food waste workshops and educations to schools, offices, and communities. And then the last thing that we do is we do have a ugly produce business, because we would like to encourage people to rethink about what they consume. So here's what we call ugly. It is the produce that is slightly wrinkled, undersized, oddly shaped, maybe slightly blemished, near expired, or overripe. These types of produce are usually not very appealing, and that makes them usually end up as waste, while we believe that they are as tasty, healthful, and nutritious. In fact, 40% of the whole produce actually never really reach the consumers. So this is a perfect example of how our consumption patterns goes a long way. We might not realize that our habit of only buying, perfect, beautiful, shiny fruits and vegetables could actually be harmful to the planet. So we work with fruit distributors and farmers group by giving their unsold ugly produce the second chance by offering them to our customers with a more affordable price, usually with discount ranging from 25 to 70% from retail price. And we also turn them into healthy snacks like cold pressed juice, dried fruits, jams, ice creams, and so on. And since our initial operations in June 2017, we have rescued 183 portions of food, approximately 43 tons of potential food waste, and serve 127,000 undernourished beneficiaries, and hopefully still counting. All right. But I think one thing that we need to highlight is that food loss and waste is a real issue. It is predicted that on upcoming few years, we will face food scarcity. And given all the negative impacts from food loss and waste, economically, environmentally, and socially, I think it's time for all individuals to take part of this movement. So one simple guidance that we can all follow through is called food recovery hierarchy. It shows us the order of priority on how best to sustainably consume our food and keep it from ending up in our landfills. So the most preferable action is surely at the top, which is to reduce food waste from the very beginning. Avoid producing food waste whenever possible. And there are actually a lot of simple and very practical ways that we can do at home. And I'll give some examples later. By reducing this food waste, we should be able to cut significant amount of food waste, right? But should you have any leftover at home, based on the chart, the next priority is to donate the food to people, so it can serve its initial purpose to feed human. So you can share it with your family, neighbors, or the ones in need around you. Or if you have it in the big scale, you can actually donate it to the nearest food bank in your locations. And then once the food is no more edible, the next priority is to use it for animal feeds, industrial uses, and lastly to compost bins. So always remember that our main goal is to reduce the number of food waste going on to landfill. And here are some things, simple examples of sustainable consumption and food waste reductions that we all can do at home, right? So first one is food waste audit. It is something that I highly suggest you to do. It is very easy. It is basically keeping track and what type of food that you waste, how much food that you waste, and why you waste it. And by doing it, we begin to, better understand and notice where and how much food we waste, and we can start doing something about it. And next is practice mindful buying. Only buy things that you really need. It is very helpful to create a shopping list and stick to it, because research also suggests that it is better to buy less but more frequent rather than buying in bulk, because it tends to make us easier to forget all items that is stake in our kitchen or in pantry. There are also a lot of type of food that we usually waste, but can actually be reused and repurposed into other dishes. So for example, we used to throw away the broccoli stem, while it is actually as nutritious and delicious as the broccoli flower, and we can turn it into delicious crispy snack like this one, for example. And then eggshells can be turned into organic fertilizers. And your leftover rice from last night, it can be turned into fried rice. If you have leftover vegetables in the fridge, it can also be turned into chapchai and so on. The same approach can also be applied if you have overripe fruits that might not look pretty, but once you turn it into delicious dish, voila, you can avoid this banana being thrown away. You can also start doing regrow from any herbs in your kitchen. For example, the leeks, just put it in the water and it can continue producing another leeks for a couple weeks ahead. If you have any coffee grounds at home, for example, you can always use it as a scrub for your body. And our fridge arrangement, although it looks very simple, but actually can also contribute either in expanding or reducing the shelf life of the food that we store in it. And then, of course, finish your food. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you can always feed your leftover foods, the non-edible ones, to feed the animal. Or you can also compost it in your compost bin. And you can also start planning the meal. It's what we call meal prep or meal preparations. So you can buy and prepare the ingredients just in the right amount without anything left. And then when you eat outside, because you are the one who is aware of your portion, always request the portion based on the amount that you think you can finish, right? If you think, if you don't think you can finish the big amount of food, then you can always request to get the half portion. Another thing that I would suggest is try to grow your own food, because it can help us, changing our perspective and relationship with our food. It's very hard to throw away our food that we, hardly grow from the very beginning. I think that's it. So next time you have your food ready before you rise, please do remember that it takes a lot of works, tremendous efforts from the farmers, the cattlemen, the traders, the drivers, the chef, the waiter, just to serve you the food, and not to mention millions of people starving out there. So the very least thing that we can do is to respect our food and start practice sustainable consumption for our people and for our planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Eva. That was exactly 15 minutes, perfect timing. And ladies and gentlemen, as Mr. Drajat mentioned before, one of the solutions to tackle food loss and waste is by changing our behavior. And here, Ms. Eva has shared with us the practical activities that we can do to actually tackle this issue. The first one is to avoid producing waste. And if you happen to have leftovers, you can first donate it to those who need it. Or later, if it's not edible anymore, you can give it to the animals, use it or process it for industrial need. And lastly, make compost. And of course, prior to that, practice mindful buying. And again, Ms. Eva also reminds us to consume more fruits and vegetables. Although they seem to look ugly, apparently they are still healthy. They are just nutritious. And even if you don't like it, we can still make them as interesting food, like banana nuggets is actually one of my favorite food, Ms. Eva. Thank you very much for sharing with us. So I've been practicing tackling food waste and loss, apparently. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Ms. Eva. Next, we're going to invite our third speaker, Mrs. Vera Galuh Sugijanto, the VP General Secretary of Danone-Indonesia. To Ms. Vera, I welcome you to share your presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Stella. Thank you very much. I hope the slides can be seen. After hearing Pak Drajat and after hearing Bu Eva, I think in a way it's really, really eye-opening. It's really, really overwhelming, but also humbling, the topic of food waste and food loss. And it really shows that every one of us as individuals and also as members of society, including private companies, we all have a role to play, and we need to play this active role right now, or even yesterday, right? It's quite mind-boggling to see the data of how food has been lost and food has been wasted, while in Indonesia we know the challenge of double burden, the challenge of health access and nutrition access is still a very big issue that we need to tackle together. So I think it really, we cannot undermine this topic. And when we think about food loss and food waste, we also need to be able to understand across the value chain, across the supply chain. And I think this is where, as Danone Indonesia, we would like to also share what initiatives and how our business model, in a way, would contribute towards protecting food loss and food waste. So just to share a bit, Danone Indonesia is part of the Danone Group. We have a clear vision and mission. For sure, the vision of One Planet, One Health really becomes our compass in everything that we do, because we really understand, and I think in different contexts, people would also relate how we protect our health and how we protect our planet is really interconnected, and anything that we do will always impact this too. And so all the business model and the initiatives that we do as Danone, we want to make sure that we can deliver a positive impact for our planet and our health. And this is very much related with our topic today about managing food loss and also food waste. And to link to our mission, as we are a food and beverage company, then we want to make sure that we can bring health through food and beverage to as many people as possible. But beyond just our products, we also want to make sure that our initiatives and our solutions can also tackle the health issues in Indonesia. And this mission and vision have been lived for more than 100 years of being a pioneer in health innovation, and we will continue to do so as well, including in Indonesia. And I think these mission and vision, we've also in a way adapt and link very well towards our Danone 2030 goals, which is of course supporting the sustainable development goals. And with these goals as well, we have a bit more detailed and granular direction on how we can ensure that our business model and the initiatives of Danone, including the people that is part of the family, really embrace the food revolution. And this is for a long-term agenda, for a long-term mission beyond just Danone itself, but really about ensuring that food and beverage and our products are being not only affordable, but also accessible by consumers. So if we talk back to our commitment on food security, first and foremost, we need to ensure that our healthy products are accessible and they are also sustainable in the business process, but also in the way we produce and in the way we market them. So for Indonesia, we have a footprint of 26 factories across the provinces. And through these 26 factories, we serve more than 1 million consumers. And happy to also share that the way we run our factories or our operations, sustainability is at the heart, ensuring that there is minimum waste, whether it's the materials being used, but also the after production. And probably we'll share a bit more on this. Second is to ensure that the products that we produce covers or tap into the key portfolio that is needed for consumer. And in this case, we have in Indonesia, our water business through Aqua, and our specialized nutrition, which is really addressing the needs of health and nutrition for our kids and pregnant moms, pregnant and lactating moms. And then when we talk about consumption, we always need to also understand the packaging, right? Because then when we talk about waste, we also need to put in the mindset that waste is not only coming from the product itself, but also the after consumption, which is the packaging. And happy to share that through our brand of Aqua, we have 70% of our product category is already circular, meaning that it's the packaging itself is circular, that it's going to be used over and over again through our gallon products. But also the rest of our packaging is 98% recyclable. So I think in a way it also helps to ensure that waste, not only food, but packaging is being managed accordingly. And this is also what contributes toward the sustainable business operations that Danone Indonesia has in Indonesia. Going a bit detail on our commitment, especially when we talk about preserving the planet, preserving the health of the environment that we live in. We have 4 pillars to address, which is on circular economy of packaging. We have water stewardship. We have our commitment towards carbon neutrality, but also regenerative agriculture. And I think when we talk about water stewardship, when we talk about regenerative agriculture, I think in a way it also touch base a lot with the elements that Bu Eva and Pak Drajat have addressed earlier. So in terms of economy, circular economy packaging, we have committed ourselves in 2018 that we will continue to, through our commitment of Bijak Berplastik, we will ensure that we can collect more plastic than we use in our packaging. We will also ensure that our packaging can be recyclable, recompostable, reusable, and we continue to educate millions of consumers to join the movement that everybody has a role, like managing food waste, but also general waste. Everybody has a role, and they can join the Bijak Berplastik movement. Something interesting, if I can share, one of the pillars of the Bijak Berplastik is also trying to put the waste management closer to heart, which is in one of our office, in a head office. We launched the Green Office program since I think 2 or 3 years ago. And just to share a bit of data on the recent one in September, we can see even just for our head office, which is around 6 floors, we can produce more than 2,000 kilograms of waste just in September. And when you see the proportion of the waste, 21% is actually organic waste, and which will be further processed into compost. And then 54% is unorganic waste, which is covering paper, plastic, metal, glass. And this part of the program will be, of course, distributed to recycling units that is relevant for the type of waste. And then 25% is actually residual waste that needs to be further processed with a certain cement industry. And this program is also being done with our partner Waste for Change. But I think this data can also connect towards our behavior in terms of consumption. When you see the organic waste, it's something that first we need to address again how we can consume our food responsibly, but also if there is any residual and waste, we know how to manage it better so that it really doesn't go into the landfill. And in a way, there is still a second life for all of these type of waste, ensuring that we can contribute to a healthier and cleaner Indonesia. Then another example that we wanted to share is Waste Bank program. And I think many companies have also embarked on this, but some examples that we wanted to share is that the Waste Bank covers beyond just, let's say, waste on the packaging itself, but really we wanted to engage community. And one of the example is our Waste Bank in one of the factories is to educate household to separate waste into organic and non-organic type, but also is to build a community nutrition garden so that every family can access their own nutritious food. And this is one of the waste bank example in our Tanggamus area, which we also have a presence on factory there. So I think when we talk about waste, it really covers a variety of type of waste, and including as well to address how we can access health and nutrition for every family and addressing the health burden that is being faced by Indonesia. Before going into the nutrition aspects, I think coming back to the circular planet that we shared earlier, so it's about packaging. It's also about how we manage our water. So I think as a company with 26 factories, the responsible and sustainable use of water as one of our main resources really needs to be addressed, and we have addressed so. In our specialized nutrition factory, we have reduced our water consumption up to 16,395 meter cubic. And then also we are partnering with community to ensure that there is also a regenerative agriculture in place. And out of that initiative, we also managed to absorb back water into our soil, more than 5 million liters. We've also provided, as part of our continuous sustainability engagement, is a water credit scheme for 45 rural villages to be able to distribute clean water to over than 54,000 Indonesians. Last but not least, along the years, and of course continuing as it's part of our core activities, then as Danone-Aqua, we've planted over 200,000 trees and committed to plant more than 1,500,000 more trees in this year. Another aspect where we talk about sustainability in our operations, which of course support the sustainable products that we produce, is our carbon neutral commitment. So through this carbon neutral commitment, we have 21 factories that is in the process to have all solar panel roof being installed by 2023. And this would help to reduce the amount of CO2 production more than 60,000 per year. Not only that, we've also started to construct our biomass boiler plant using agricultural waste, and this should be in operation by Q4 2021. And to relate back to the regenerative agriculture, we have several initiatives that help the community to produce more sustainable coffee beans. We call them Kopi Tirto. We also have sustainable farming for rice. We help them produce a brand rice, healthy rice, but also sustainable farming rice called Orisa. So when we talk about managing food waste, really we need to address it from the whole supply chain. And this is some of the initiatives that we can do as Danone Indonesia. Going back to the concerns on the health burden for Indonesia, as Drajat mentioned, there are also initiatives that we do beyond just ensuring that our nutritious products are accessible by the consumers. But some of the initiatives that we've rolled out over the past years is education module on Isi Piringku, which is addressing education for PAUD and also for elementary school on how they can really balance their diet. So this is addressing not only the healthy consumption that kids should have, but also again the balance and ensuring that we also educate kids from an early age that if they consume it well and balanced, there should not be any food waste as well. And then to balance that, we also have education module on healthy hydration or ayu minum air for kids. As we know, kids in Indonesia, in terms of hydration level, it's also below the standard. But we also understand that when we talk about health burden, especially when we talk about stunting, we sometimes miss a generation gap here, because then we need to address the teenagers, and this is where we have the GESIT module education, which is addressing teenagers, both male and female, because they are future parents. They need to understand what standards, nutrition standards that is required for them as teenagers to become parents. And of course, we hope that that will also eliminate the cycle of stunting that becomes a vicious cycle. So it's not only addressing for the first 1,000 or first 3,000 days, but also the future parents. Another one on the slide is about Warung Anak Sehat. So I think this program was initially started several years back, and we wanted to ensure that the canteen of the schools actually understand the right nutritious food for the kids. So helping the canteen ladies to actually understand what kind of serving that they need to do, but this also can be addressed the food waste as well. And with the pandemic over the past almost 2 years, then we adapted the program to actually help them to digitalize, but also understanding, not only digital promotion and marketing, but also how they can manage their income more sustainable during the pandemic, as these canteen ladies sometimes also support the economic situations of the family. So I think in a nutshell, those are some of the initiatives that as Danone-Indonesia, we try to tap into to address not only the food waste or the food loss, but ensuring that affordability or accessibility of nutritious products and healthy hydration is available for our consumers, and helping contribute towards a sustainable business model that will also help the Indonesian environment, which also will link towards the healthy of the Indonesian people. And I think as a closing statement, we all have a role to play to ensure that we can choose and consume our food wisely, and make this beautiful country a much more cleaner and healthier place for us to live, and of course for the generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vera, for the presentation. It was very interesting because previously we have heard from the policy perspective and also from the individual and grassroots level activities on how to tackle food waste and loss. But here we just learned how the food loss and waste strategies are implemented on industrial scale. As Mrs. Vera explained to us, across the supply chain, there are a lot of things that companies can and should do. For example, what Danone has done is that not only that it ensures the access to quality products, such as helping millions of Indonesians access clean water and also nutritious milk, but they also make sure that the packaging is recyclable, that they keep protecting the nature through their commitment on circular economy, and not only from the packaging, but also in water stewardship as well, in which one of the things that they did is that they regenerate the water for agricultural purposes. So this is very exciting. So thank you, Ms. Vera, for sharing. I'm sure all of us here have a lot of questions to learn more about what we all can do, whether on individual, business, or policy and industrial scale activities that we can do together to tackle this issue. Now, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we're going to open the floor for question and answer, and I'm going to choose the question that we're going to address first. I think the first question that we're going to address is, I think this one is addressed to Mr. Drajat. Mr. Drajat, there's a question from Matthis van der Lely. Is the malnourishment geographically instigated? For instance, the 1 out of 12 people who are undernourished, are they mostly in Irian Jaya or on smaller islands? Mr. Drajat, I welcome you to answer the question.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sally. I would like to rather to say no rather than yes, because as we know that although malnutrition, particularly stunting, is more prevalent in eastern part of Indonesia, like East Nusa Tenggara and also Papua, but it is a complex problem, particularly stunting. It is caused not only by inadequate food consumption, but also poor hygiene and sanitation, particularly the unavailability of clean water. But undernourishment, that's when the intake is less than the recommendation of the Ministry of Health, we call as angka kecukupan gizi. It is more related to the affordability of food. So it's depend on the purchasing power, the household income, the price of food. The poverty level is, of course, become very important factor. And if we talk about the number of those who are undernourishment in Java Island, the people even the number even much bigger rather than in other island, because of the problem of poverty, the problem of price food, and also lower income and purchasing power is sometimes even worsen in this island. So, but if we talk about the undernutrition, particularly stunting, yes, this is depend on the geographical area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Drajat. I think Mr. Drajat here has explained to us the complex nature of this issue that we're facing. Not only that location may affect the level of nourishment, but also the price of the products, and also, of course, the household income itself, and how it helps or hampers their access to nutritious food. Thank you very much, Mr. Drajat. Now for the next question, I think this one can be answered by Mrs. Vera. What are the 3 top actions in order to reduce food loss and waste? And also, is there any plan to digitalize any programs to tackle this issue?
Thank you, Stella, and the question. Sorry, I did not get who raised the question, but I think there's no magic answer, right? In general, to actually help and or contribute towards the food waste and food loss, first, I think we all need to be choiceful of our products and the consumption that we take. We need to understand the products have been produced and managed in a way that is sustainable. So we know that in the process of the products itself, we are not contributing towards additional waste that is being residue towards the process. Second, I think it's really continue to educate consumers, community, and all the stakeholders on what is a healthy and balanced diet and consumption, because that also will, in a way, not limit, but we can consume effectively, efficiently, and also at the right level of consumption, and help to reduce food loss and food waste. And third is, I think every one of us is linked towards any kind of waste one way or another, which includes also food, but include also the packaging post-consumption. And we will continue to inspire and invite all consumers and public out there that we can manage our waste much more effectively. You can join our Bijak Berplastik. We can understand the type of waste and how to manage them. We can also pick the type of product that actually has more sustainable packaging. So we have a role to contribute towards a healthier and cleaner Indonesia. So I think probably that's the top 3 actions that we can continue and consistently do and invite people to join. Digitalize. I think what Garda Pangan has done is really inspiring. And what we can do as Danone-Indonesia, we have also connected our process to help consumer or facilitate consumer easier to collect and manage their packaging or waste much more easier is through digital. So we've worked with digital application partner, one of which is Octopus, where they can also connect how packaging waste can be collected after consumption, but also other e-commerce platform that can also help consumers to manage their waste much more easier through digital application, and they can trace as well where their waste will end up, and it will not go into the landfill. So I think those are some of key answers that we can share towards the answers being raised.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vera. So, ladies and gentlemen, there has been movements on the digital platform to manage waste. So we all can participate in that. Perhaps Ms. Eva wants to add in this question as well. Oh, it happens to be delivered by Krisman Oposunglu from Tokyo. So Ms. Eva, your version of top 3 actions to reduce food loss, and maybe you want to share more about digitalization in tackling this issue.
Thank you, Mbak Stella. I think the answers from Bu Vera really covers it all. But from our perspective as an organization that directly works with food loss and food waste, we do think that we do need so much collaborations between a lot of parties, communities, with the governments and other parties as well. So companies, hospitality industries, food businesses, need to really rethink about their food wastage. They really need to see that their food wastage actually is harmful to the planet, and start doing something about it, right? And then the government, I think their role is to create rules and regulations and public policies that can cover this problem, because I believe that Indonesia also still doesn't have a proper rules and regulations about food loss and waste. So that will be also an advantage for us if we do have that kind of regulations. And I still think that it is also very important for many individuals to start taking actions from their, from the circles that they can influence. So start making changes from yourself, from your families, from your friend, and then, continue doing it for the bigger circle, for your community, for your society, in your campus, for example, and so on.
Thank you very much, Ms. Eva. So, ladies and gentlemen, there are a lot of things as we can do to tackle the food waste and loss issue, whether they're on the individual level or from the collaborative activities as well. And of course, regulators can also help by making policies that support us in protecting our planet from increasing food waste and loss. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope that answers your question of several things that we can do to tackle food waste and loss: mindful consumption, managing waste. Now we're going to move to the next question. I think this one can be answered by Mr. Drajat. A question from Resti Kurniatriastanti. Our farmer and household has mindset to produce more food or harvest to boost their income. But today, many of the food that they plant just ends up being waste. And the sustainable farming and sustainable diet is just popular in many millennials. So what should we do about it?
Okay, thank you very much. So of course we have to help the farmers first with the accurate data of the price, for example, and the requirement of the food month by month, so the farmers can make a plan better. And also there should be a regionalized food production, so not everybody plant, for example, chili at the same time. Then during the what we call as panen raya, the price will drop. And the second, of course, we need to strengthen the partnership between the farmers organization and also the what do you call the factory that they use the or industry that use the raw materials from the farmers on the long-term base. So the price will be stable, so it can stabilize the price and guarantee the good price that can be received by the farmers. And then we also have to think about the product subsidy if it is possible, because it will be very much costly. It will be very expensive for the government, but and then the other thing is we have also to develop the agriculture insurance to be able to guarantee for the farmers to they will receive the money if they get a loss, etc. And I think those three measures can be implemented based on the specific areas, on the specific products, and also on the specific situation. And then, of course, the last thing is we need better technology for the to process the product that oversupply during the food product during the production, so we can make an added value for that. For example, during the excessive production of chili, for example, we can make a dry chili rather than living in the field and just become garbage. So, but it will need also the changes of our mindset in Indonesia that using dry chili is even better and also can help farmers. Because if we always use chili only to make a sambal, just like we usually provide and eat, we still will have problems of this in the long future. So we need also not only for the production side, but also the consumption side. We need to change our mindset that to avoid the food waste, we have also to be able to try the new product that is become one of our solution in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drajat. This is a very important point, how our behavior change does not only help us and the planet, but also the farmers. And apparently the technology or digitalization can also be used to overcome the oversupply issue. So there's a lot of room for improvement, whether it's from economic side, such as providing subsidy, insurance, and etc., but also from the digital perspective on how we can better match the supply and demand to prevent oversupply. Thank you very much, Mr. Drajat, for addressing that question. Now, for the next question, I think this one is very interesting. I'm going to invite Ms. Eva to answer this question. Anjani Junarto asked, sometimes people think that ugly products such as fruits and vegetables tend to rip or rot faster than the good ones, so it should be consumed ASAP. How about that? Or is there any way to keep the products longer? Ms. Eva, can you have maybe you have some tips for us?
Okay, thank you, Mbak Stella, Mbak Anjani. I'm actually in the middle of writing the answers. So the answers is, I think it really depends on the type of the ugly, right? If it's only, undersized, oddly shaped, or anything that is related with the cosmetic or supermarket standard, then the ugly produce are, I think, as good as the normal ones, right? But if it is overripe, maybe wrinkled on the skin, or maybe slightly blemished, I think it may affect the shelf life. So you would want it to be consumed immediately, or you want to turn it into other, dishes or snacks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Eva, for sharing. Now, for the next question, we have a question for Mrs. Vera. It is from an anonymous attendee. How is food waste impact to environmental or climate change? Because we know almost all the food waste ended up in TPA or nature.
Hello. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, Mrs. Vera.
Sorry, because I was facing some audio issues. Can you repeat the question, Mbak Stella? Sorry.
A question from an anonymous attendee, because there are two questions from an anonymous attendee here. I'm going to hand both of them to you, Mrs. Vera, if I may. So for the first question is that you mentioned a very high percentage of recyclability of the small aqua water bottles. This is great news, but we all see lots of bottles in the nature. How high is the percentage that is actually recycled? And for the second question, how does food waste impact the environment or climate change? Because we know that almost all of the food waste end up in tempat pembuangan akhir or TPA.
Okay. So two questions and hopefully can be answered one straight one. So yes, we acknowledge that there are high percentage of waste, whether it's plastic or others, that is not being managed properly. But I think what is important is through our initiatives in Danone Aqua, we've actually done this since 1993 through 1993 through Aqua Peduli, which is basically we are collecting more than 12,000 tons of plastic waste every year. And we do that through 6 recycled business units, which is basically recycled units that is being supported and facilitated by Danone Aqua. And for sure, we need more partners and players to also do the same, to actually address and really collect plastic packaging that we know when collected correctly and when managed correctly, they actually have a second life. So that is the importance of why people really need to join the Bijak Berplastik movement. And because before it goes into the recycled business units, every one of us as consumer, we have a role to play to really start from our household to segregate our plastic or our waste, because then that will also help when it goes into the collection centers. It's already been segregated, and we can already tap into which types of waste that can be channeled through recycling, that can be channeled through composting, or that can be channeled through energy, right? And the topic on food waste, we've actually inaugurated in the past 2 years, so last year and this year, two integrated waste management center. One is in Lamongan and one is in Jimbaran. And what's interesting is that really the waste management center is being managed that it has zero to landfill. So any kind of waste that goes there really is segregated based on the waste, including actually food waste. So with the fact that if there are residual of food waste that comes into the center, it will certainly will not land into the actual landfill because it's being managed so that it can be composed. And there is already partners being connected to ensure that the compost is being picked up and being used. So I think that's also a role of companies and communities to work with the local government, to work together and collaborate to create more of these waste management centers, so that along the value chain, as we mentioned earlier, the type of waste can really be managed. And of course, with less waste going into the landfill, with a system that is zero to landfill waste, then we really can contribute towards the change of climate, because anything that goes into the landfill and not being managed well, it's basically deteriorating the planet. It's basically creating more health issues for our generations to come. So again, please join us along with other partners to really step up on our Bijak Berplastik movement, because it really is addressing beyond just the food waste, but also the climate change.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vera, for sharing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Vera just invited us to join the Bijak Berplastik movement to manage our waste. So there you go. Mrs. Vera just offered us a solution. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have so many questions here because the discussion has been exciting, but due to time constraint, unfortunately, I have to pick one last question, and I will pick a question by an anonymous attendee, but I think this is a very important question. If you want to donate edible foods, where is the food bank located in Tangerang area? Perhaps Ms. Eva or Mrs. Vera want to share some of the food bank locations around perhaps Jabodetabek. Ms. Eva first, perhaps. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. If you are in Jabodetabek area, I think there are 2 food banks available in that locations, but I think they're not in Tangerang. I'm not sure, but you can check Food Bank of Indonesia and Food Cycle. They are in Jakarta.
Thank you very much. Maybe Mrs. Vera or Mr. Drajat want to share the food bank location, perhaps. Because we have attendees here from everywhere, you can share any food banks that you have in mind.
Sorry, I do not have any information about that, particularly in Tangerang.
All right. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our question and answer. Before we close our session, I'm going to invite our excellent speakers here to give perhaps 1 to 2 sentences for a closing statement. I'm going to start first from Mrs. Vera. Mrs. Vera, if you may give your closing statement for us.
Okay, closing statement. So I think we don't undermine the issue on food waste and food loss. Any one of us and as consumer and as a member of a society have a role to play with. And for us in Danone-Indonesia, we continue to preserve our commitment to have a sustainable business operations that can help address waste management, including food waste and food loss across our value chain. And so we invite everybody to really choose and consume our food wisely and sustainably.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vera. Now I would like to invite Miss Eva for the closing statement.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Stella. So yeah, I think in reducing food loss and food waste, I've been mentioning it a couple of times now. I think the first one, awareness, is very important, and I think that's why we have Pak Drajat and other researcher. We need to have more and more data available about our food loss and food waste conditions in Indonesia, so we can start taking action about it. And then number two is collaborations among the whole parties, institutions, individuals, and governments. I think that's very important. And the number three is start taking action right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Eva. Now last, Mr. Drajat, please, for the closing statement.
Okay, to reduce food loss and waste, this is the responsibility of everybody. So each of us has responsible to reduce, particularly food waste, and take everything moderately. So the problem with food waste is because you buy too much, you take too much, and then going to waste. So if you have any surplus, just give it to the needy groups, and I'm sure that it will strengthen our neighborhood, the social environment, and we become a strong community because of this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Drajat. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our discussion on the future of our food is in our hands. As we have heard from the last 90 minutes from our speakers, there are so many things that we can do to contribute, and we can start with mindful buying, mindful consumption, and in the end, actively participating in managing our waste. Ladies and gentlemen, it was an honor for me to moderate the session in this 37th episode of the JakPost Up Close. It has been very insightful, and I hope we can learn a lot from this session. And also, please remember, as Mrs. Vera invited us all before, please join the Bijak Berplastik movement to manage our waste. That is all from us, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stella Kusumardani. Thank you for participating in our event, and I hope we will see you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Pak Drajat.